All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful and maybe one of the most misunderstood moments in the entire Bible. We're talking about Jesus' final hours on the cross, specifically from Matthew 27, verses 45 to 49. It's just a handful of verses, but wow, are they packed with cosmic signs, a mysterious cry, and a huge misunderstanding. Let's break it all down.
So picture this. We are dropped right into the scene. It's high noon, the sixth hour, according to Jewish timekeeping, at the site of a Roman execution. But this is not just any other crucifixion. The whole vibe is about to shift, turning this very public, very brutal spectacle into a truly cosmic event.
And this is where we hit verse 45, where nature itself seems to be reacting to what's happening. The very first sign that something on a whole different level is going on is this sudden, completely unexplainable darkness.
Now, what's so wild about this is how long it lasts. The text says, from the sixth hour there was darkness over all the land until the ninth hour. That is 3 solid hours, from 12 noon to 3 in the afternoon, where the sky just goes dark. Can you imagine? It sets this incredibly heavy, foreboding tone. You have to remember, this was not a normal solar eclipse. So the question on everyone's mind there, and for us reading it today, is what on earth did this mean? What was this supernatural darkness trying to say? For anyone with a Jewish background, the symbolism here would have been powerful and, frankly, terrifying. This kind of darkness immediately brings to mind the plague over Egypt, the one right before the death of the firstborn. It's seen as a signal, a harbinger of a great judgment coming. And it was so unsettling that apparently even the Roman soldiers, guys who had seen it all, started to think they were witnessing something divine. Okay, so let's move to the climax of this whole passage, which happens in verse 46. After 3 hours of this eerie darkness and silence, right at the ninth hour, Jesus finally breaks that silence with a loud and, for many people, a really mysterious cry.
Matthew records that at about 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried with a loud voice. And these are the Aramaic words he spoke, just echoing across the hill. It's this moment of raw, audible pain that just cuts right through that unnatural gloom.
Now, the text gives us the direct translation right then and there. And on the surface, man, it sounds like the ultimate cry of despair. It sounds like a man feeling completely and totally abandoned by God in his darkest hour. And for centuries, that's exactly how many people have read it. But that brings us to the absolute core question of this entire passage. Was Jesus genuinely confused? Did he think the Father had actually left him? Or was something much, much deeper going on here? And here is the absolute key: context. For a first-century Jewish person listening in, that phrase would not have sounded like despair at all. It was a specific, deliberate reference, like a signal flare shot up to point to something they all knew by heart. You see, in that culture, you didn't need to recite a whole chapter and verse. To reference a psalm, you just quoted the first line. It was like a cultural hyperlink. Everyone's mind would immediately go to the rest of that text. So by crying out the first line of Psalm 22, Jesus wasn't asking a question in confusion. He was pointing everyone's attention to a specific prophecy that was literally coming true right before their eyes. And when you actually put them side by side, it is just astonishing. Psalm 22, written 1,000 years before this moment, describes this scene in unbelievable detail. Look at the prophecy column. Verse 16 says, "They pierced my hands and my feet." That's the crucifixion. Verse 18, "They part my garments among them," which is exactly what the soldiers did when they gambled for his clothes. The whole psalm was a blueprint for this moment. So by quoting that first line, Jesus was essentially shouting, hey, pay attention. This thing that's happening to me right now, this suffering, it's not a random tragedy. It's the fulfillment of Scripture. Look, listen, and understand what's really going on. It completely flips the script, turning a moment of what looks like weakness into a powerful declaration of divine purpose. But, just because a message is sent doesn't mean it's received correctly. And that brings us to verses 47 through 49, which are all about the confused, muddled reaction of the people who actually heard him cry out.
And here is the tragic disconnect. The crowd hears Eli, Eli, and their minds immediately jump to the prophet Elijah, or Elias in Greek. It's this very literal surface-level mistake. They totally, completely miss the profound scriptural point he's making about being the suffering servant from Psalm 22. Right in the middle of this confusion, one person actually does something. A soldier runs, grabs a sponge, soaks it in Pascha, that's the cheap, sour wine vinegar that soldiers drink, and offers it to Jesus on a stick. It's this strange gesture, maybe part pity, part mockery. And yet even this small act fulfills another prophecy, this time from Psalm 69. In my thirst, they gave me vinegar to drink. But the rest of the crowd? They stop the soldier. Their reaction is just cynical and dismissive. They're basically saying, hold on, leave him alone, let's see if Elijah really shows up to rescue him. They're still stuck in their misunderstanding, treating these final sacred moments like some kind of morbid reality TV. And that really leaves us with a final lingering thought. The crowd at the cross heard the words, but they completely missed the meaning. They saw an event, but they were blind to its real significance. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When history is unfolding right in front of us, do we see what's really there, or are we too just seeing what our own expectations allow us to see?